Rolling? Yeah. Hello guys, thank you very much for being here on RSA. So for me, it's a fantastic time to come and gather together with everyone talking about cyber. And Patrick, thank you for being with us and Mike organizing this session. I think my main job, I think here, is try to talk to you, Patrick, about the OT market, which we both come from.
Yes.
And understanding what is changing. So first of all, first day RSA, how do you feel about it?
I've been coming to RSA for years. I'm on the program committee, so I'm a big fan of the event. First day is always, things are kind of the calm before the storm. People are still arriving. Chaos isn't quite in full swing yet, but I've already been to one talk, and it was, of course, Joe Slowick, who just kills it every time. So we started off with a bang.
No, amazing. And I keep hearing a lot of agents, AI for sure.
Oh, yeah.
But I think is OT it's already 20 years behind of IT. How are we going to cope with all the demands coming? And I don't think so. Agent in OT is going to be a good experience.
And not for the foreseeable future. I don't think so. I mean, and with RSA, there's always what's the next buzzword, what's the next kind of security technology to break through and make a difference. Last year it was generally just AI. This year it's agentified AI in a lot of ways. I'm not seeing that at all in the OT space, at least not in the operational components, right? I do see it where we're looking at, almost everything now OT is digital. So we have data streams coming out of things. We never had data streams before. So we have far more data than we ever thought we would get. And in some cases we have almost too much data. We're trying to figure out what to do with it. So some organizations are now using multiple different forms of either, whether it's language models or agent-based solutions, to mine through that data and come up with useful, interesting things, whether it's predictive maintenance or many other efficiency-based analysis methods. At least the agents are working on that more historical data, but I'm not seeing anything where it's being allowed to operate in real-time operations by any stretch yet.
Yeah, I think it's very good comment that you mentioned there, because we anticipate the market that was very air-gapped. Now it's not as much we thought to be. Some sites that they claim to be air-gapped is never being air-gapped as we believe. Also from renewables and the energy field, which is growing, is quite significant now. Also the threat actors acting on that field and understanding now they don't have to stop asset, as we saw happening in Poland, in order to kind of disturb the grid. We see a very clear situation, actually kind of unbalancing, and it's quite interesting that unbalancing becomes quite a trend now in terms of the grid, right? And I think regulations are coming. I can tell you that NIS 2.0 has helped Europe, and I want to hear about the next SIRP. What is coming next?
With NERC-CIP, the standards are shifting. They're 20 plus years old. They're old enough to buy a beer, When they were written, technology was very different then. So the change coming forward is we're trying to move to a pace where we can actually modify the standards in a faster way, because technology moves faster than laws everywhere, every time. So getting a way where we can move more toward not just a faster change to the standards, but the ability to write less technology specific. The hard part about that, which is what NIS 2, for example, did, it's very general. It doesn't say pick a framework, here's a specific security control you must use. They just have general goals. That puts a lot more responsibility on the agency doing the auditing to understand what's going on, make sure this works, versus just did I check the box of meeting a control. So they're trying to shift the standards that direction, which I think it'll be interesting. But with that in mind, I think it's long overdue for a refresh. So I think we'll look a lot more like NIS 2 over time than we did with NERC-CIP, which, I mean, it was interesting to see the US kind of took the lead and was the gold standard for regulation for many years, and Europe has just raced past that.
Yeah, I think regulations are good because it sets certain frameworks for companies to work. I think exactly what you point out. NIS 2.0, on my view, what has changed in the market is making the director person reliable.
Yes.
Not just the fine itself.
Yes.
And also the relationship to the attached to the license of the generator.
Yes.
Right. So that actually creates some gaps in mindful thoughts. How do I tackle my cyber program inside of my organization? Because before it used to be, as you said, just money, but money for money, maybe some companies will buy the fine, and we'll continue moving with the kind of not even the basic, the cyber hygiene.
Yes, just justify for business reasons to go ahead and have the violation and pay the penalty versus do the right thing. I think their approach of putting the responsibility on the board members and the owners of the organization, best move they could have done. Absolutely. If they don't have some sense of responsibility and culpability in that operation, they will always blame it on somebody else. I mean, and that's part of the difference between the regulations is most regulations are designed for the public good. And that's why they're there. You must be this tall to ride the ride if you're going to be infrastructure in these countries. And businesses are not there for the public good, they're for the shareholders' good. So those goals don't align, and I think this forces an alignment of those goals.
Okay. Yeah, one point that is quite coming in UK now, we see UK moving to the cybersecurity bill, resilience, which is similar to the NIS.
Yeah.
But one, I think, caveat to that I heard from the off-gen release recently is going to be the SSES, which means anything that connects to the grid must have kind of a maturity and at least kind of assess before we do it. Because I think coming from my side on renewables, where we see proliferation of renewables or energy connecting everywhere and actually help us to be decentralized on the energy grid. However, is adding a landscape that perhaps in the future we could see a DDoS attack from the energy using the grid as an unbalancing system. So we see a DDoS on the IT, but imagine now that I control multiple assets across the whole region of my country, and I can manipulate as we see happening in Poland. So it's not far away that it's going to happen. It's a reality. And I think
it's already here.
Exactly. And I think the demand also from the energy, from the data center, from the AI, the batteries is going to drive more significant approach. How do you see that happening? Because batteries now becomes one of the critical aspects of the scenario of cyber.
I mean, when you've got grid scale battery operations, you basically have an extremely powerful generator that you can discharge. You can dispatch as many of them as you want, which means you can ramp them and you can drop them, and you can ramp them and you can drop them in ways that you can't do with the generator because it's a giant spinning motor. So it only will behave based on physics. Well, the physics of a battery is much different. So your ability to, I guess, I don't want to say weaponize, but affect a grid, even with a large number of smaller operations, you can still cause problems. So what I've seen at least is there's been a race to get to the renewable goals. A great idea. We need it, right? We need every electron we can get right now. I don't care if it's squirrels in cages. Every electron we can get, we've got to try to get it. But with that, there's been a lot of move fast, break things kind of mindset in the renewable space, which we needed for a certain window. But at some point, that has to kind of align with the grid model of we actually have to do things carefully, slowly, or the grid will destabilize. I mean, as you know, it's a very sensitive machine. It has to operate very specific or it will just collapse, as we saw in Spain, for example. So
it's a very, very critical situation. Before passing to Michael in Brazil, that he's very keen to ask you about the market, one last question for me is quite interesting when you mention about every single electron. Everything that we do today is a software, right? It doesn't matter which type of mechanical, if it's a wind turbine, if it's a solar, if it's a BESS, if it's a hydro, it's the end of the day is software. And software, as we know, can be compromised, can be creating different problems for us to resolve. And today we are talking about cyber hygiene. Just one main point that I want to mention, when you mention about the battery ups and downs, the movie of Ocean's 11, where they goes on the top and they dispatch a pinch device, which kind of creates kind of unbalancing on the grid and actually creates the situation where we saw in the movie, which we think maybe is just a fiction, not reality. But with BESS, is a pure reality now.
Yeah, it can be. Any sort of an electromagnetic pulse problem is a much bigger problem than just batteries or other generators, because it will affect the equipment in a way that makes it, in most of the equipment you have to replace after something like that. It's not like you can just turn it back on. So those kinds of concerns are much, much bigger. I mean, from a cyber perspective, you can cause a similar approach without having to do any sort of damage. With like an electromagnetic pulse, you can just break the devices, which is what we're seeing, what they were trying to do in Poland, for example. And we've seen it in other situations, in Russia attacking Ukraine, and there's been a handful of other situations where we've seen this, but I don't have to use an electromagnetic pulse if I can get into the device and actually just wipe its firmware so that there's, or in some cases, they're actually breaking it so much that you have to unrack it and put a new device in.
So yeah.
So, about Brazilian market,
Yeah.
do you know a difference with U.S. market?
No.
No?
No, there's no difference. I mean, we buy our equipment from the same vendors all over the world.
Oh, okay.
There are new vendors coming in, obviously. There are old and entrenched vendors that have been around forever. There's a lot more trust in the vendors that we've known for 20, 30, 40, 50, or 100 years, even in some cases. That said, as we go into the brave new world of every electron,
Yep.
there will be software components, as you mentioned. I mean, reality now, any grid is a giant software platform that delivers electrons.
That's
there's
exactly
some
right.
there's some
Yeah.
poles and wires and
Yeah.
Electromechanical stuff in there, sure, but it's a software program that delivers electrons. With that, I think the newer players are all going to be mostly these software platforms that help in this space. There's a lot of really good new things that I think as an industry we're very slow moving with good reason, right? We don't just adopt everything quickly and try it out. But at the same time, I think a lot of organizations, whether it's Brazil market or any other, we have to begin to embrace that mindset at the same time.
Yes.
So it's not do one or the other, it's do both. That's expensive. So I think that part we haven't quite wrapped our heads around, is we have to have a test environment to try everything out and then slowly bring those over into the controlled, slow-moving grid delivery environment. But for Brazil, I would say we're all buying our software and hardware from the same companies. Language doesn't matter anymore now with LLMs.
Yeah.
And I think like European CRA is going to help Brazilian market, it's going to help the US market. It will, as painful as it's going to be, it will be the USB-C cable for the world when it comes to supply chain for the critical infrastructures.
Yeah, because we think the U.S. have more maturity because of the laws.
Yeah.
Because in Brazil we have laws, but we don't have laws for OT. So
Yeah.
what do you think about it?
I mean,
It's quite interesting because laws can be good, but can be
Right.
not so good,
Yeah.
right?
I mean, I'm a recovering regulator. I've been a regulator.
Oh, okay.
I wrote some of the NERC-CIP standards. I was the first NERC-CIP auditor ever. So I've been down that path. Regulation is good to a certain extent, and it's really difficult to get it right. It often has unintended consequences. Like we set the threshold at 75 MVA for generators. So you saw, if this is the threshold, there were a lot of 74.9 generators that were running around out there because it was just under the threshold. So then we moved that down, and now it's 20. And then they all got looped in. So there's always these unintended consequences, and with regulation, I like the NIST2 approach because it's not prescriptive. It's basically do things. You need incident response, you need risk management. There's some high-level stuff that you need to do. We'll come check. Yeah. And what I see on the other side of this is if you didn't do it, then there's likely going to be some bigger monetary
issue,
problem and lots of lawsuits and maybe even some handcuffs on people. It just depends. But there should be at least some regulation, especially for critical infrastructures, to do something the right way. Otherwise, there's just no responsibility, and you'll see problems.
I think just for us to finalize, and thank you for your time and you Mike, for organizing this session. I think for me it's very critical in echoing what you said about we produce electrons down the grid, and I think even the grid is not smart enough today. It's being built ages ago, and we are plunging a lot of devices hyper-connected, and with the more demanding on the data center side or even on our energy consumption, the landscape of threats is just going beyond our controls. And I think we see a lot of complaints sometimes of I'm installing software that generate a lot of alarms, a lot of information, but what we do with that, because when you consolidate 300 assets, there's a big gap between the cyber folks and the OT folks. We know that, right?
Yeah.
And that who talks to what takes the decision, and at the end of the day is the CEO or the top that needs to answer a kind of the situation that happened down below.
Yeah. Interesting you mentioned, just a touch on that concept. I do see a large overlap in the two Venn diagrams of operations and security. We're trying to keep the machines safe from the people, and they're trying to keep the people safe from the machines. So that same concept, like a lot of the security telemetry that we get is operational telemetry that they can also use. So when we're looking at like, traffic analysis inside of a network, we can see, oh, this system, that's why it's been rebooting every 4 o'clock on the third Thursday, because it's running this one routine that we can finally see now because we have security visibility in there that was actually operationally beneficial. So I see that we can get a lot of operational benefit out of this at the same time, and I think selling it like that to the operations side is super useful because we get a lot more real operational visibility and understanding. So we can do both at the same time there with a lot of our security technologies. But when we start looking at, putting sensing and control everywhere, and you've got, when we used to have maybe, let's say in a generator, maybe 10 to 20 to 30 different sensing and control points to thousands across how many thousands of different types of generators, that scale is only going to be managed with AI. There's just no way a human can do this.
Totally agree.
So at some point, we're going to be using AI to analyze, it will respond, and it's not like we haven't done this before. We do it right now with an energy management system. We're using logic and machine learning, and we've been doing this for 50 years. So we should be able to do this better, faster than almost anybody else. We're already used to it, so I think we can get this done right.
It's kind of like how to blend technology together to help us from this operational technology and the cyber technology to come together and give you the point to look at instead of be looking at everything.
Yeah.
That I think fantastic. Thank you, Patrick, for your time.
Thank you so much for
Michael,
having me.
for organizing. I think it's a pleasure to be at RSA first day.
Yes.
Looking forward to hear more and to see and to learn more. But thank you very much, Patrick.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate the conversation.
For the conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Amazing.
Yeah.
Well done. No, thank you.
Thank you.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
so we did.
That's good.
We use the space for marketing material.
Oh yeah.
Once they send the video, I share with you, and then we can broadcast together, do some snaps.
Perfect.
Just take this mic here.
Yeah.
But yeah, amazing.
Você vai querer gravar agora?
No, do we have how long we have?
10 minutos.